which is a dam up near the city where I live, which is Reading, and there's a stilling basin where I go to be still. And in that stilling basin lives a great blue heron who goes fishing. And I watch that great blue heron. And every time I see that great blue heron, it has a message for me. And that message for me is, "This is the day which the Lord hath made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." For we must never forget that this is a spiritual universe, that we are spiritual beings, and that all is well. For all is always well in a universe run by spiritual law and presided over by benevolent, loving Holy Spirit. When we look under the hood of life, we find that there is no randomness. There is no tragedy. There is only pure life expressing as each one of us, each experiencing the results of the decisions we have chosen to make. This is in no wise suggesting that we should not do everything we can to reduce human suffering, as those who are unconscious spiritually are suffering mightily and in an exaggerated way during this time of international turmoil, and we know enough to help them make their path easier, and that then is our job. But every person decides when they're going to enter this earth plane. Every person decides when they're going to leave this earth plane. When any person decides to leave this earth plane, they choose their method of leaving and their time of leaving. Some people are choosing to leave this earth plane via the coronavirus, and that's completely up to them. It's none of our business, and it's okay. The metaphysics of it all. There is material sense, and there is spiritual sense. Material sense is the world of the five senses and sees something wrong nearly all the time, is always in reaction, is frequently in overreaction, is mostly fearful and angry, and never sees life clearly as it is. Material sense says there are two powers, God and something else, and that the something else is much more powerful than God. Therefore, we need to be afraid, very afraid. It's our job to move from material sense to spiritual sense. I noticed with interest that Louise Hay recommended that we read the Seth books from Jane Roberts. When I looked in Seth's book on the individual and the nature of mass events, I found a detailed metaphysical explanation of what happens when mass events sweep the globe. In particular, I found this quote: "The mass deaths in an epidemic are a protest against the time in which they occur. Often such outbreaks take place after ineffective political or social action, after unified mass protest has failed. There is a psychic contagion. Despair moves faster than a mosquito or any outward carrier of a given disease. The mental state brings about the activation of a virus. Those who die are the victims of apathy, despair, or hopelessness, which automatically lower bodily defenses. The epidemic serves the purpose of warning that certain conditions will not be tolerated. The mass nature of the event causes social life itself to be disturbed, altered, and rearranged." Seth concludes, in contrast, that the natural state of life itself is one of joy, a state in which action is effective, and the power to act is a natural right. You would see this quite clearly with plants, animals, and all other life if you were not so blinded by beliefs to the contrary. You would feel it in the activity of your bodies, in which the vital affirmation of your cells brings about the immensely complicated achievement of your physical being. That activity naturally promotes health and vitality. As the New Thought psychologist Venice Bloodworth said in her book, Key to Yourself, the majority of people are drifting on the high seas of life. No chart marks their destination, no rudder holds a course. They are at the mercy of the winds of chance, the rocks of doubt, the shoals of ignorance. For us who know the truth, there is for us instead a world of accomplishment, health, friends, enjoyment of God with us, moving through, in, and as us. Thinking is the true basis of life. Some are sick, some are healthy. Thought is the builder. There is no such thing as luck or chance. It is law that makes the universe so harmoniously exact. There is but one law, one principle, one cause, one source of power. It is natural for men and women to be healthy and whole in mind and body, and for them to abound in all good. When one knows the truth and lives in accord with the law of his being, health and prosperity spring forth naturally and abundantly. Life and health and abundance are a natural law of the universe, and thought is the active principle by which we are related to the things we need and desire. It is our belief that binds us and not any actual power. When we experience a complete change of thought, this is what is meant by the renewing of the mind. Take things into the silence until they become part of you. Let your thoughts roam over pleasant memories. We have plenty of time for everything. Go into thine inner chamber and shut the door. Pray to the Father in secret, and he, hearing in secret, will reward you openly. Thought is the only reality. Conditions are but the outward manifestation of thought. As thought changes, all conditions must change in order to be in harmony with their Creator. And she ends with this wonderful quote from Carlyle. This city, with all its houses, palaces, steam engines, cathedrals, and huge, immeasurable traffic and tumult, what is it but thought? A huge, immeasurable spirit of thought, embodied in brick, in iron, smoke, dust. Palaces, parliaments, coaches, docks, and the rest of it. Not a brick was made, but someone had to think of the making of that brick. This reminds me that all people are under spiritual law, including those deemed by cultural beliefs to be most vulnerable, including all essential workers, all healthcare workers, including people working in meat plants, including people working and living in nursing homes, because thoughts are things. When I look out at life through this lens of metaphysics, I conclude that if everybody was practicing love and visualizing health and vitality, that's what we would be seeing externally. If everybody were thinking perfect health, this virus would soon be gone, because it is only fear that keeps it alive. I am not alone in this opinion. I recently listened to broadcasts from both Abraham Hicks and Eckhart Tolle, in which they both agreed completely with this. Abraham expressed that this is vibrational in nature and this doesn't have to take you out. A reasoned and objective look at the epidemiological data shows that when we remove the hysteria, that the death rate is less than what is being frantically reported in the press. A good source for this is Bruce Lipton, a molecular biologist who discovered and then proved scientifically through his study of epigenetics that your consciousness determines your state of health. The researcher Dawson Church has published peer-reviewed studies that stress-busting techniques like meditation and meridian tapping increase immune system function in large, measurable ways. And many independent studies in mindfulness meditation show it is awesomely good for health in many measurable ways. So even before we move to metaphysics, even if we just look at leading-edge biology and psychology, we find out that consciousness makes a huge difference in our physical health, something that is unknown in the general population and then the general scientific community. This lack of knowledge includes the public health world. I don't know about you, but I have yet to listen to a press conference where the public health experts are telling us that our first line of defense should be to stay calm, practice meditation to boost our immune response, and listen to our intuition so we make wise decisions. But that is the truth, even at the scientific level. And when we move to the metaphysical world, we find a true alternate reality. For metaphysics teaches us that, despite appearances, nothing bad is happening. God is still closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. God is still in the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is still within us. Not only is all well, but all is always well. The world, as Paul said, is seeing through a glass darkly. And right now the glass is very dark. But when we penetrate the spiritual truth, we find that this is time to thrive because every time is a time to thrive. And this is provable by each one of us personally, by experiences you yourself can have in consciousness, if you let your meditation go deep enough or long enough. Ernest Holmes says that our thought is creating happy or unhappy experiences, sickness or health. If we're engaged in business, our thought determines if our business will be successful, whether it will expand or contract. Our normal state is to be physically well and financially secure. All successful business people expect their good in advance. We can do that in our personal lives as well, and in Science of Mind, we are taught to do just that. There was a man from Nova Scotia who wrote to Ernest Holmes for healing back in 1918. Ernest gave the treatment request to his mother. After she did her treatment, she said to Ernest, "That man was healed. I know it." We can do that too. For Ernest Holmes says that your word destroys everything that is imperfect, breaks down every man-made law, every material perception. For the word of the Lord is quick and sharp and powerful. In 1918, tuberculosis was a big deal. Lots of people were dying from it, and there was no known cure. People were sent to sanitariums to die. Holmes said, "Suppose you sit down in front of a patient with tuberculosis. Now that patient is dying because something is operating upon his body. We know that since all causation is mind, whatever is operating on that individual's body is some activity of mind. The whole race consciousness is that tuberculosis kills people, but it is all mental. That person had not wanted to become sick, but he had become receptive to the race consciousness and taken in a lot of negative thought. If you sit down beside this patient who has tuberculosis and say, 'This poor fella has tuberculosis and that's pretty bad. Looks like a hopeless thing,' you will not be able to treat for him, for his physical body is an effect, an outpicturing of his mind. But God has given you power. Your word is the law unto this case. If it was not so, you could not heal anything. Your word, backed up by law, is causation. It is man-made that this man is poor, sick, miserable, and has to die of tuberculosis. You can declare that this man is perfect and declare perfect life for him." And Holmes said, "There is something, I don't know what it is, that does it." He said, "Health is." He said, "I spend 2 to 3 minutes giving you treatment, and I find that just as soon as you get that bigness of thought, and you know it, it is a treatment." He said, "This earth is beauty. It is lovely. It is bountiful. We are in the midst of plenty, yet we are starving to death. We are in the midst of harmony, yet we are miserable and suffering and living in a childish, weak way." The idea that something is wrong, otherwise known as problem consciousness, is the true pandemic. Under normal circumstances, most people are running around flailing madly at life while muttering to themselves, something is terribly wrong. Today, amidst this cultural crisis, most people are running around flailing madly at life while saying loudly to themselves and others, something is terribly, terribly, terribly wrong. Victoria Castle wrote a wonderful book called The Trance of Scarcity on this generic, widely spread cultural trance that is characterized by the feeling there's not enough and I'm not enough. The majority of the world's population are in this state of mind most of the time. This is material sense. The trance of scarcity is equal to the fight or flight response. People in this trance are in a perpetual panic and feel justified in committing antisocial acts because they feel it's a dog-eat-dog world. This is the feeling of competition. People deeply caught in this state of mind feel justified in predatory business practices, theft by deception, actual theft, and other criminal acts. The medical field is filled with fear. The public health system is driven by extreme fear. So trance of scarcity is present through and through. Public dialogues, as we're seeing during this COVID-19 situation, are therefore always about how afraid we need to be, and the implicit assumption is that existing in a state of extreme fear is our only option. What people filled with fear don't realize is that human bodies filled with fear are compromised. Judgment is impaired. Frantic action is the norm. A sense of impending doom is common, and depression or aggressive behavior are frequent results. People filled with fear, which is most people right now, don't realize that every thought they think is conditioning them, affecting their behavior in negative ways, and creating negative results in their physical bodies. Extreme fear can kill. Fear depresses our immune systems, makes us far more susceptible to infection, and makes infections far worse when they are contracted. Fear generates so much of the stress hormones, adrenaline, and cortisol that our bodies are in overdrive, and cell damage is not repaired unless we have sufficient downtime for that to happen. So we are literally dying faster than we're living, which, if perpetuated as it is with someone with chronic stress, which is most people right now, leads to premature aging and chronic and acute illness. Fear tightens up our breathing as we move into upper chest emergency breathing and then stay there for a long period of time. This cramped breathing changes the blood-gas ratio in an unhealthy way, setting the stage for anxiety and panic attacks. Fear leads to dark moods and opens the door to general or specific anxiety disorders, depression, and antisocial behavior. Because fear itself is an overreaction, everything fear tells us to do is an overreaction. But to someone caught in fear, the thing fear is telling them to do seems like the only possible reaction, so they are compelled to do it, creating endless problems in individual and collective consciousness and decision-making. We see this on the world stage every day in the form of endless bickering, fault-finding, and indecision or bad decision. Because people don't realize thought is creative, they don't realize they are creating endless misery by constantly visualizing problems, disasters, sickness, economic ruin, and the other nightmares which are circulating in human consciousness right now. An alternative to the trance of scarcity is the thought, I am handling this, which is solution consciousness. The opposite of the trance of scarcity is medically called the relaxation response, which is characterized by nurturing hormones, peace of mind, rational thinking, a sense of expansiveness leading to successful behavior, and appropriate caution and prudence, rather than out-of-control fear. In the relaxation response, which is where we go physiologically when we do deep meditation, cell damage is repaired, and the body rebalances. Action is taken from a rational basis, and life feels balanced and in control. Mindfulness is a great solution, as it is an antidote for fear that increases both our physical and mental health. People trained in the physiology and psychology of mindfulness know that fear and panic are not productive or healthy states of mind. They also know that mental images tend to manifest, and that if you are afraid of and therefore mentally imaging being sick with an infectious illness and your life falling apart, that you are actually creating that in your mind and body and life. As subjective mind externalizes any image held in the conscious mind on a continuing basis with intensity. People trained in mindfulness know that mental images tend to manifest as moods and behavior, and that therefore fear and panic are simply not productive or healthy states of mind. Moodiness, panic, depression, and over-aggressive behavior, such as buying too much toilet paper, are the result. At its most extreme, antisocial behavior, such as hoarding hand sanitizer and then reselling it at exorbitant rates, can result. You have to learn to not judge by appearances, but to have true spiritual vision and learn to see what you want. People trained in metaphysics know that what you think, you become. What you focus on, you get more of. What you consistently imagine appears in your physical world. So you have to move into solution consciousness if you want your life to be successful. For best results during this situation, Spend time every day in the relaxation response. This is where we go in deep meditation. So your body gets a chance to repair cell damage and you get to experience peacefulness. Make self-care a priority, including rest, time for your own needs met, good nutrition, and moving your body in healthy ways, being outdoors when you can, while meeting public health guidelines in your area. Spend time every day visualizing perfect health and well-being, harmonious interactions with the world, and success in all areas, including finances and relationships. If your body is feeling imperfect, spend some time in meditation, remembering a time when you felt in perfect health, a scientifically proven technique called remembered wellness. If you find yourself upset, as soon as you can, use a stress buster technique to get yourself down out of the upset, such as EFT, tapping, or some form of deep meditation. Spend time every day reminding yourself of the core concepts of your faith tradition. Science of Mind has a huge history of positive results that result from practicing positive faith, including many success stories of people overcoming adversity, receiving inner guidance during a difficult situation, and being healed from a frightening illness. Every day, ask yourself, what am I creating with my predominant thought patterns? And use whatever tools you have available to make sure your predominant thought patterns are creating a reality for yourself that is healthy and successful and what you truly want. For God loves us so much that all of our prayers are answered. What we learn in metaphysics is that every thought is a prayer. And so we need to ask ourselves, what am I praying for with my habitual thinking? The bottom line is that the law of mind, manifesting as this universe, makes all of our dreams come true, including our bad dreams. So it's our job to make sure our dreams are good dreams because of the thought choices we make every day. When you go deep enough in meditation, you drop into the peace that passeth understanding, and you can hear the still small voice of the Holy Spirit, known as the Comforter, as it comforts you, and it will comfort you. When life is seen through the eyes of God, this is a time to be alive, a time to thrive, a time to be happy, peaceful, and relaxed, a time to become aware of the presence of God, and the awareness of the presence of God is peace. We can all practice the awareness of the presence of God. We are all capable of that, and so it is. Michelle, could you play the recording?